Have you ever wondered what goes inside a Pokeball? Or more importantly, how exactly is this tiny ball able to capture these pocket monsters we know as Pokemon? Well, this is one of the burning questions I have had since I was a kid, and I figured a lot of people probably also wonder the same. So I collected as much information from the Pokemon manga and animated series to come up with an answer that satisfies my curiosity and yours. And I think you're gonna like it. So the first question I needed to ask myself to come up with the conclusion of what goes on inside a Pokeball was, what is a Pokeball and what does it do? So as we know from the anime, Pokeballs are simply spherical objects that humans in the Pokemon world have been using for a long time in order to capture Pokemon. When this ball is thrown at a Pokemon, it immediately opens up and digitizes or turns the Pokemon into energy. And that energy is somehow transferred into the ball, and then the ball is instantly closed shut. Now, depending on the ball you use, the ball simply has to shake 3 times successfully in order to fully capture a Pokemon. And now we move on to the second question. What exactly is the Pokeball made out of? As we know in the Pokemon universe, the outer shell of the Pokeball is typically made out of an apricorn. Now these apricorns are fruit-like items found in the Pokemon world. They can be found in various yields and different colors throughout the world. Each color is normally associated with a different ball. For example, the black apricorns are the heavy balls. Now that's just the outside construction of the Pokeball. What exactly is the inner workings of it? Now I looked into a lot of different manga chapters as well as the anime and the games, and we never really get an exact detail of what it exactly is that makes the Pokeball tick. However, we do know that it is some interior advanced technology that allows for this engineering or process to happen. We also know that certain people actually are professional craftsmen that all they do is literally ensure that they craft the best Pokeballs. For example, Kurt from the Johto region. He is known for his expertise in crafting any Pokeball. Now another thing we know is from the Pokeball process, there are various types of Pokeballs such as the Ultra Balls or the Great Balls. Each enhances the effectiveness of the Pokeballs. However, it doesn't really change how the Pokeballs work. And let's not also forget, there are actually companies in certain regions in the Pokemon world that actually are dedicated to mass producing Pokeballs, which means that the technology used to make these Pokeballs seems to be a knowledge widespread throughout the various regions of the world. We also know that there are many older versions of Pokeballs that have been used through the countless centuries. And over time, somehow humans have learned to adapt this technology to be even greater. Now that we have an idea how the Pokeball works, as well as what Pokeballs are made out of, we'll move on to our third question, which is going to exactly focus on what happens when the Pokemon is transferred from their physical bodies to the ball. Now, are they just turned into tiny creatures or turned into energy as a whole, or are they digitized? Now for me personally, I think they're turned into energy and the modern Pokeballs actually digitize them. And here's why. We're going to look at similar technologies we have in the modern Pokemon world. And we're going to look at Bill's PC. Now, as we know, Bill's PC is pretty simple. It allows us to transfer Pokemon between the trainer and wherever they have their Pokemon stored, or they can just simply store them on the PC. We also know on the PC from the video games as well as the anime that when Pokemon are stored in these digital worlds, they are given landscapes to match their basic types. For example, you may have digital worlds that are just perfect for aquatic Pokemon, and all it is water. Or you might have a page which is just tailored right for Pokemon who want to run wild, such as Tauros. But the gist is, these Pokemon somehow are able to keep their cognitive functions, remember their whole entire lives, with a catch which we'll cover in a second, and live peacefully on this digital plane, without it really affecting their health, or so we think. Now, as I said earlier, there was a thought there I had to come back to, and the thought is, when a Pokemon is actually captured by the Pokeball, it kind of brainwashes them when you think about it. For some reason, most Pokemon, when they're captured, instantly have this allegiance to whoever captured them. So I want to believe that part of the technology in there kind of mind controls them just a little bit. But we're going off a little on topic. So let's bring it back here. So as we're saying, I think Pokemon get digitized for the same reason that we're able to keep Pokemon on Bill's PC. So with all the information we've gathered so far, we understand when Pokemon are captured from Pokeballs, they get turned into energy or digitized and enter a Pokeball. And this Pokeball is made out of apricorns. And now the reason this fruit is probably perfect to be used as the outer shell is because of how durable it is, or it's simply the same thing as having a PC. It is the right components needed to store information, like any microchip. And if we use the same logic with Bill's PC, it means that when they go inside the Pokeball, they're able to live most likely in a terrarium of their own, which caters to their very needs. Now, if we look at the Pokemon Horizon series, there's an episode that allows us to see a streamer named Nidothing release a video on Pokeballs. Now, what's interesting about this is that Nidothing shows that his Quaxly is having a great time inside the Pokeballs, and the main one we get to see is the Luxury Ball. And we get to see Quaxly actually relaxing on a couch, sipping on a beverage, while there's a disco ball overhead. And there appears to be some background objects as well. But again, this is for the Luxury Ball. What about the base Pokeball? It doesn't really matter, does it? The fact is, it seems like inside the Pokeball, they're able to live in their own little terrariums. And the reason certain balls may be more effective at catching Pokemon is simply because when they go inside these balls, for example, like the Luxury Ball we just talked about, the environment is tailored to the innermost needs of the Pokemon, which causes them to want to stay even more, which is why it's more effective at catching certain types of Pokemon. Makes sense, right? Now, obviously we know each Pokemon in the Pokemon world are just like us humans and animals in our world. They all have different personalities, even though they may have general cultural traits. And these personalities is what maybe sets them apart for certain situations. For example, look at Ash's Pikachu. Pikachu has never wanted to be inside a Pokeball. He's always wanted to be out, which makes a lot of sense for the different personalities that Pokemon carry. Some people just don't want to be constrained in that little technology or that little room and want to have the freedom that they remember from the past. And that's basically what Pikachu's doing, as always being outside the Pokeball. Also note that Pikachu is probably captured in a basic Pokeball. That terrarium inside may not have suited Pikachu's full needs. Now, another thing we also have to talk about that I actually asked myself as I was doing this video is that inside these Pokeballs, are all the trainers' Pokemon inside these Pokeballs somehow able to communicate amongst each other? Because what I've noticed in the anime and the manga is that somehow when battles are going on, the Pokemon that were in the balls previously, that weren't out watching the current Pokemon battling, somehow have a gist of what's going on. So it's either they can communicate and technically see what's happening outside the ball, or that could just be a coincidence that I've noticed. Now, another reason I believe that Pokemon in these balls are able to see what's going on outside is because there are many instances when these Pokemon immediately come out of these balls to save their trainers. And it also seems to have a failsafe in case these Pokeballs are damaged or destroyed. The Pokemon immediately seems to be able to exit the Pokeball with ease. So I'm pretty sure in my mind there's probably a little exit button out there, or maybe the Pokemon just has to will it enough for them to leave. But the brainwashing that goes on with the Pokeball that keeps them subservient to the master makes them stay in the balls. But again, you do have outliers like Pikachu. Now, what I want to think with all this information we've gathered is that Pokemon simply become digitized or turned into energy, and the Apricorns are the perfect shell to contain this data. And the data is somehow transferred to ensure that the Pokemon in these balls are satisfied to almost every need they have. And the different type of balls that have easier opportunities of catching Pokemons of certain types simply are specially tailored to that type of Pokemon, which makes the Pokemon want to stay longer. But also note that Pokemon that are captured by Pokeballs somehow get a little brainwashed and have this undying fealty to the Pokemon trainer themselves. And let's not also forget that the Pokeballs are connected to Bill's PC as well. When Pokemon trainers capture Pokemon and they've already met their on-hold capacity of 6, those Pokemon are instantly transferred to the PC, which means the Pokeball themselves have a way to be digitized. Now, you may be asking yourself, why can't the Pokeballs capture people? Well, I personally think there's a failsafe in these Pokeballs to ensure that, but then I have another video which actually comes out to say that people are technically Pokemons as well, but that's for another video. So with all that information, what do you think happens to Pokemon when they go in the Pokeball? I think they just get to live out their best life to a terrarium that suits themselves, rather than the thought that they're just unconscious in a Pokeball, not doing anything. That seems very sad to me. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you think.